Yes, guys, you know what time it is. It's your boys Jack and Shawnee here doing the tactical breakdown of the Aston Villa game. Basically, the show where we kind of just wrap up, that whole game in a nice little bow, toss it away, forget about it forever, talk about everything that there is to be said about the game, break down the stats, break down the tactics for it. I'm pretty sure you guys have enjoyed it so far. So hopefully you enjoyed this one. David, unfortunately, is still, kind of out with that back problem, kind of almost Ollie Skip-esque, I would kind of say. It seemed like he was going to be better by today. Kind of something's going on, and there's something's going on in the medical team department, maybe in the Harris household, potentially, Sean. But we're joined by an excellent person for this one, almost like a Hoybier coming in for Skippy here. But Sean, how we doing?
Well, I'd be glad to be called Benson Core, but I don't mind. It's okay. I'll take Hoybier.
One of us will get that role.
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Thank you for having me on. Best wishes to Dave and his recovery. And that's good to see you, man. Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's good to be here. It's good to have a bit of the Harris Army, doing a bit of a different time for this one, kind of in recognition, it's Champions League. I want to watch Champions League. Sure, you guys want to watch Champions League. So we're going at a bit of a different time. Hopefully maybe have some different heads in the building for this one, I hope. Different time, maybe different folks. But as always, let's just greet a bit of the Harris Army here. And everybody, do hit your likes. Do hit that sub as well if you are new to the Harris Army. If you are new to the Irish Hotspur, RAI says, I'm in work, but I will watch it while riding back home. Big up RAI, and do really appreciate it, my man. Do really appreciate it. El Saeed saying, what's going on with Paratici, guys? It kind of was leaked, I think, a month ago. It was like over kind of the holiday time period. I remember being leaked that something, about him inflating transfer fees in order to kind of balance the books over at Juventus. It's kind of some sort of, not conspiracy. It's some sort of, kind of deal that's being done by a lot of directors of football and clubs. It's not just Juventus.
61 executives across 11 clubs. I'm not sure if it was transfer fees. I think it was something to do with more like fixed assets rather than variable assets. But
maybe in his case it was transfer fees.
Was it transfer fees with him? Was it? Okay,
yeah. But I don't know. At least that's what I saw in a Daily Mirror sort of article. But there's only so much you can really trust from that. But I don't know, Sean. At least what do you think of this opinion of mine? Like Daryl Denton is saying here, big up El Saeed. The Don's been cooking the books. Yeah. He couldn't be the Don if he wasn't also going through some sort of embezzlement charges or some sort of financial fraud charges.
I just heard somebody calling him, rather than Don Paratici, is now Con Paratici. Yeah, not good. But the ban that's supposed to be imposed, if they've all found guilty, is 16 months. But I don't believe it's going to affect. It's only Italian only, right? So it doesn't have any. Unless the jurisdiction is not coming from UEFA or FIFA. So if anything was to happen, it would only happen in the Italian leagues. So
it'd be pretty baller if they were to extradite him, from the club and everything, just see, the FBI or some version of the Italian FBI, launch on Paratici.
I think it's just a suspension from football activities in Italy. So all he would have to do is, it might disrupt our ability to buy Italian players in Italian, in Italy, but he could still organize them, negotiate them before the thing comes in, and then someone else just goes over and puts the I's and the T's and all that stuff crossed and dotted. So I don't know. I'm not too worried about it. I hope it's not a big deal.
I hope I'm not too worried about it too. It seems like maybe, hopefully, it's also funny that Daniel Levy would even hire a guy, that's being accused of these sort of things as well. It's nice to see a bunch of kind of, firsts. But Daryl Denton, he couldn't be the Don if he wasn't cooking the books, my man. Exactly, Daryl. Exactly. Big up, Daryl. Mick, always good to see you. Always good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well. Yes, he's shocked. You're just discussing it, my man. And it seems like, it probably doesn't really apply to him while he's at Spurs. But 164 Spurs, do hope you're keeping well, my man. Really do appreciate you always tuning in. Dan Ann saying a nice late morning stream here in the States. Exactly, Dan. Exactly. Bit kind of different. Maybe in the West Coast, what would it be like? Right before 9 o'clock, getting up in the morning, getting ready to head out the door. Over here, right before lunch, maybe for you, Dan, in the middle of the country, who knows, 10 o'clock. I kind of like it, switching things up. Mac is in the house saying top 4 is ours. Yes, it is, my man. Paro Miguel Escobardo, as always, and really sending the good vibes as well. Big up, Paro. Rohan Kumar, as always, as well. Good to see you, my man. Scott Hynam saying, let's get it on. Come on, you Spurs. Big up, Scott. William Pretty saying, if Paratici gets banned, we're done. We're Levy in charge for new signing if we get Champions League football. Be happy because we will have it for 1 year. We need to spend 180 million pounds to get a good squad. I really have no fears that Paratici is going to get banned. But with Levy, what would happen if that were to happen? Do you think, Sean? Like, let's say Paratici does get,
I can only imagine that the rules
Levy
would be
terminate his, maybe his job or something. Do you think maybe just get someone else?
No, I don't think so. I would just imagine that it would be one of those things where, how is anyone ever going to be able to monitor what he's doing, who the phone calls he's having, on whose phone is he having them? All 90% of transfers, I'm guessing, are already decided before the official meeting. I think by the time most of the meetings happen, it's usually just a formality. So I'm massively speculating. I'm guessing we all are. None of us really understand the thing here. But what I would imagine, if what I believe to be true is actually true, then I would just imagine that it would just be somebody else, whether it's Daniel Levy or whoever, that would just take care of the formality of doing the job, and that he would continue to just make his phone calls and things. Maybe that's part of the reason why he came to the UK in the first place. Maybe he knew that the writing was on the wall for his Italian tenure, a couple of years or last year, and he went, "Oh, I've got to get out of there, otherwise I won't be able to do any work for the next
cook the books so long." He can only cook the books so long, and then he got the hell out.
But when there's 61 executives that have been indicted, and more than 50% of the Italian league are all guilty of doing the same thing, it sounds to me like it's just 10 a penny in Italy, that this sort of thing, whatever this thing is, this corruption, this cooking of the books, whatever it is, it sounds like it's just par for the course. And so
it's systemic by the looks of it.
Yeah, exactly. Good word. Yeah, systemic.
Yeah, but looks like Paratici could be the heart of that systemic kind of problem by the looks of it. But big up, William. Good to see you in here. Spurs Savage saying, regarding the Paratici banning, it's only in Italy, will not affect any Spurs transfer business. Hopefully so, and hopefully we can still get our Italian rejects, my man. Hopefully we can still get our Juventus rejects. I don't know what we would do without more Juventus rejects coming through the door, my man. It'd be like cutting off a pipeline, for us. Absolutely. Big up, though. Ian Ferguson saying, get better, Dave. Do appreciate that, Ian. Really appreciate the well wishes. He'll be back by tomorrow. According to, he said he'll be back by tomorrow. I'm worried he might pull off another Ollie skip, sort of again, but. Kutlanya Pena saying, we can't get players from Syria. We might be able to. I think we're going to get some, at least like Sean was saying, under the radar, saying glad Conte gets to train the Spurs boys for weeks. Then the last month, Spurs had heavy schedules, unlike now. Yeah, it feels like maybe that's contributing, partially to some of the results here. Is Sean, he's getting that 6-day period that he's always been asking for. He probably would love to be the manager of Arsenal this season. To be fair,
the stats are clear, aren't they? That when we have enough time to be able to focus on the next fixture, then we seem to have the ability to get more from the boys than when we were playing twice a week. So yeah, it's good times, and I can't wait to see what you can do with 2 or 3 months over the summer. Imagine that the powerful tactician that we can be in August next year. This year.
It's probably just going to, everybody coming back from vacation as well, he's just going to absolutely, just torch them, I imagine, like you said, he's using a lot of blood references, a lot of killing references recently in press conferences and everything. It's exactly what we want to be seeing. Escapone, one of the best names in the Harris Army as well. Big up Escapone. Ian Ferguson saying, as long as it doesn't alter us bringing in players from Italy, I'm good. Feel the same way. Ian, big up Ion Life as well. Good to see you. Kuva99 saying it's clearly more conspiracy. Paratici is one of those people capable of shifting in Ndombele before his contract runs out. I mean, it kind of makes sense. It makes sense he's cooking the books because he got Dele Alli out of the club somehow and made a club pay for him. Which just seems like some sort of, something was done under the table there. Even getting this whole Ndombele situation's a bit strange. This Gio situation, maybe he is just, doing things under the table. I have this odd feeling, Sean, maybe he's just like, that's like, kind of this kind of crook of a of a director of football. He owes clubs, favors and everything. Maybe he brought in Galini as a favor, and things like
maybe,
that.
mate. Who knows, man? I don't know. Like, it sounds, even if it doesn't affect us directly, indirectly, what sort of guy? If there's no smoke without fire, no smoke without fire. What does that mean? Like, are we dealing with a guy that does, like, to your point, like, it's worth speculating, isn't it? It's worth having the thought process of, like, are we with a guy? Does a guy control our future? And what does he owe to previous? Does he have previous debts that he has to, figure out? Is that going to impact us? It's a weird one, isn't it? So it's not ideal. It's certainly, even if it doesn't directly affect us, it's not ideal to have a guy that's in charge with our transfer policy and also the reshaping of our scouting network and our youth development. It's not ideal to have a guy that's got some sort of cloudy reputation, I guess.
Danny says, I've done some research on it, and Fabio can negotiate deals, but if the meeting has to be done in Italy, we will have to send out one of our Italian negotiators, or Levy will do the deal. So we either send Levy or we send the hitman, I guess, out there in order to do it. So one or the other could, be beneficial, and it seems like maybe not too big of a deal then, just kind of a bit of a minor inconvenience by the looks of it, Danny. But big up Kuva99 as well. Good to see you in here. Well, everybody, we're about to move on into the kind of just breaking down everything stats-wise, tactics-wise. Do hit that like button while you're in here. Do hit that subscribe if you are new to this, and do throw in the super chats as well if you want to stop us at any point. Maybe, bring up something that we might have missed, or as well, just, throw a bit of support to the channel as well. But Sean, let's break it down here. We do have the match stats we're going to go through. Villa, plenty more shots than us, plenty more on target. I think Lloris faced something like 7 or 6 shots on target in the first half alone. 52% possession to them. I think that was definitely having a lot to do with the first half. I didn't see the possession stats after the first half, but I would reckon Villa had plenty. 2 big chances created by Villa versus our 1. And then XG, funny enough, which sometimes XG confuses, me, I'll be honest, 1.6 to 1.0. So really not that big of a difference when you really look at some of the chances that maybe Villa did seem to have. But anything that maybe surprises you here, Sean, or maybe, kind of reaffirms any, convictions you had?
Not at all. So I did a show on this the other day, and it was, I looked at the first half versus the second half. Do you have those stats in front of you to look at the difference between the first?
I could look them up someplace else, but yeah, keep going.
So the major difference between the first half and the second half, right? When you reflect on the game, in the first half we were under the cosh.
So the first half was 55% possession to Villa, 14 total shots, 7 on target. So let's look at what we see in total. So 7 of their 8 total shots on target came in the first half, and then 14 of their total 19 shots came as well, in that half. And then 55% possession versus 45%. You could say we definitely made probably a bit of a chunk, taken out of that, with, it then turning out to be 52 versus 48. But yeah, continue, Sean. Sorry.
Yes. So like the stats around, like despite like the gaping hole from a visual perspective around the first half, we were under the cosh. Second half, it was kind of all ours. When you actually break down the half by half analysis, the major difference for me was looking at the defensive stats, or the battle stats that were available. So in the first half, we lost the ball 48 times, and in all of the duels that we were involved in, we only won 14 duels. In the second half, we won 33 duels versus 19 to Villa. So and in the first half, Villa had 29, right? So also aerially in the second half, we were far more competitive than we were in the first half. I think Villa had like 7 aerial duels that they won, and we only won 1 or 2, versus in the second half, we won the lion's share of that. In the first half, we only actually managed 6 tackles. In the second half, we managed 14. So even though when you look at you look at passes, it didn't really change in the first half to the second half. It was all kind of 50%. The major differences between the first half and the second half were, apart from accuracy of passes, whereas in the first half we only had like 85% or 84% pass accuracy. In the second half we had 91%, so we weren't giving the ball away when we won it. We weren't giving it away nearly as much. But really, the difference that stands out is that even though it looked from the visual eye test that we had more of the ball and we did more with it, which is obviously true. The area where I think we won the game in the second half was actually being more combative and actually stepping up, standing up, and not tolerating what Aston Villa threw at us in the first half, which was uber aggression. I'm sure we're going to talk about that shortly, but their start in the first half was so aggressive. In the second half, whether it was a combination of them running out of steam or us just kind of coming out, having Conte giving us a telling off, giving the players like, come on, boys, like stand up. This is just Aston Villa. In the second half, when we went into the battles, we came out on top by a factor of like 70%, whereas in the first half, they were coming out 70% on top. So what I found really interesting from the stats was it wasn't about the passes. It wasn't about the shots that were necessarily that much different. It was really about... but it was really about how we went into the battles and we came out on top in the second half more than we did in the first. And I think that will hopefully be a part of the story that we're going to tell as we go through the other style as we move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. But maybe it is like, would you say, Sean, like first half for Villa, was their first half, would you say better than our second half? Because I think they probably, it even says, on that stats what I was looking up, for the first half versus second half, they missed 2 big chances. It says there, in the first half. Would you say their first half was better than our second half, or would you still say our second half was better than their first half?
No. I mean, they had 7, like in terms of actual like things that matter, like the shots. They had 7 shots on goal in the first half. We only had 2 in the second half. They only had 1, right? So we completely curtailed or suffocated their offensive opportunities. But we only had 3 shots on target in the second half. Every one of them ended up being a goal, right? So our conversion ratio from shots I'm guessing that's why the XG thing is like we're 1, is because basically every time we had an expected goal, we took it. Which goes to show, I guess, that their goalkeeper,
even it was like half an expected goal, or even a third of an expected goal, and we just buried it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so their goalkeeper, I guess a major difference between the two is that their goalkeeper only made. Let's have a look. In total, 6 shots and they conceded 4. So he only made 2 saves the entire, or one. He only made 1 save their entire game. So 3 shots on target in the second half and 2 on the first. He made 1 save all game, and our goalkeeper made 8 saves. I guess one thing I'd love to talk to you about really is whether or not, when we were doing the live stream, Jack, we were trying to figure out whether or not Lloris should have got the man of the match because of the amount of saves that he put in and kept us in the game at half time. But then listening to people like Bob Spur, he was saying, well, of the 8 saves that Lloris made, 5 or 6 of them were kind of saves that you'd expect the goalkeeper to make. Maybe only a couple of them.
He's not wrong.
So I don't know whether or not the tail of the tape really is the difference between our goalkeeper and theirs, in that their goalkeeper didn't do his job at all. And every time that there was a shot on target from us, pretty much we scored. And every time that we had a shot on target against us, our goalkeeper did his job or exceeded it,
Yeah, it's kind of funny as well. When you did stats with Jack with me, a player to target I did say was Martinez, because his goals allowed versus his post-shot expected goals, which is a measurement of what they expect, the keeper to, concede, more or less. So the fact that he, I think, had 39, goals conceded, but they said that he should have only conceded 31, kind of suggests to me that maybe he is, not having the best of seasons, perhaps. And like you said, just 2 different goalkeepers. One was able to make the saves that you probably expect the goalkeeper to make. Still great saves nonetheless. But maybe Bob said, 7 of them, you kind of need him to make those saves.
It's probably only that 1 save in the first half when the guy, I forget who it was, jinked through Emerson and Royale, and then Ramsey. That's it. And Lloris put his right part, his paw out, and it just hit his thumb. And that, apart from that, most of them were probably saves that you could argue, on reflection, that were what a goalkeeper should do.
I even heard someone put it this way. They said it's not, because they said Spurs were lucky, and then someone kind of said Spurs are not lucky, they have a good goalkeeper.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's not luck. It's not luck, isn't it? It's the whole point.
It's not. It's the whole point of having a good goalkeeper is so that a good goalkeeper can keep you in games and maybe even win you games. And I even actually before was having that narrative where I was saying, yeah, we were extraordinarily lucky. Like it's not the way the game really said. But then when someone put it that way, I kind of was thinking like, yeah, if we had Donnarumma behind the sticks or something, you would be kind of thinking the same way. It'd be like,
love him.
Good luck. So I figured we'd just take a look at, just quickly, the formation. Really, they kind of overwhelmed us in the midfield with, that 4-3-1-2. Three. I think we actually got it bang on, if I remember actually from Stats with Jack, what we thought Villa would do. We did actually get wrong the Doherty and Emerson combination, but Reguilón unfortunately had to come in for Doherty, which is what I guess we originally went for. But maybe I think the major point here, Sean, is the fact that Villa did kind of overwhelm us with that sort of kind of formation of, just piling people in the midfield. Because when you really look at it, those are 4 midfielders that really are actually all quite exceptional on the ball.
Yeah, it wasn't just the 4. Like even when they had the ball or when we had the ball, you would often see Danny Ings coming a little bit deep and actually making it almost a 5. Or you'd see Watkins when the ball was on the other side, he'd come back and make it a 5. And whereas we were literally in the first half, just the 2 of us, the 2 of them, Bentancur and Højbjerg, trying to battle, trying to figure out how to keep the ball. Like you say, they completely overran us, and it was definitely a deliberate tactic to see Danny Ings and Watkins come a step back. One of them would stay up, and the other one would come back and join Luis. And that with John McGinn, the size of that guy's legs, like he's an absolute beast. And say the same with Ramsey. So it was a very clever tactic, and they had a lot of success with it in the first half for sure.
People obsessed about Grealish's calves. Maybe they should be more obsessed about McGinn's thighs. Is maybe what they should be.
He's an absolute monster, that guy. Absolute monster.
No, he's almost breaking the shorts by the looks of it. Maybe he's wearing them a bit tight. Who knows? But we go into the average positions here from the players. Aston Villa, of course, to the left. These are their center backs. This would be Tyrone Mings, number 5 here, and then Ezri Konsa. The whole midfield, when you think about Ramsey, Douglas Luiz, and then John McGinn here, spread very, very wide, which makes sense. If you're doing kind of an overload in the midfield, you would kind of still want them to keep some sort of semblance of width. You have Luca Digne, being very, very high up. And then you do kind of have a cluster in here. And we'll explain that cluster later, maybe, which it will be kind of coming in the form of that press. The reason maybe we had such a rough time in the first half is because that 3 really made life difficult for any of our center backs that were on the ball. We take a look at Spurs'. If anybody's been watching these shows of the last few, this has kind of more or less been pretty consistent, this sort of formation or kind of average position of ours. I guess the big thing, though, is, Reguilón did come in, for Doherty, and it kind of makes sense that then, I think it's kind of replaced here. Like Reguilón is more or less supposed to be number 2 or supposed to be Doherty here. And his average position is always as high as the left winger, if not even higher. He almost keeps the width because Sonny and Harry Kane play practically on top of each other. Anytime that Harry Kane drops deep, you see Sonny fill in the middle, fill in that void of the striker kind of position. Not a surprise to see kind of Kulusevski and Emerson, kind of tucked in pretty close to each other. Then the back 3 is spread pretty wide. And then Højbjerg and Bentancur tucked on top of each other. It's kind of things we've seen before. It's not really, too different. So really shows that no matter how poorly we might have played in the first half or well in the second half, the defensive shape, the average positions have been very, very consistent and not all over the place. Because I would say, Sean, is that if you do look at kind of the average positions of other teams, sometimes they can just be kind of all over the place in certain games, which maybe is an indication the team doesn't exactly know, what they're at, what they really need to be doing, maybe where they need to stand and whatnot. And I think that's a good sign that, the average positions of our players have been very, very consistent.
If you can go back, just quickly go back to the previous slide. What concerns me a little bit, right? I'm guessing this is over the 90 minutes, is it, Jack?
Yeah.
So what concerns me a little bit, and maybe gives a little bit of insight into why we struggle so much, is, if you see Ben Davies, right? Ben Davies is spread ridiculously wide, considering that the tactic pretty soon, pretty rapidly in the game became to go long. His requirement to be on the left-hand side supporting Reguilón, other than for a decoy purpose to try and pull players out to allow the long ball, the direct pass to be more effective, it almost explains a little bit why we allowed them to be to overrun us in the middle. You know, and if you look at the Aston Villa side, right, they were all veering a little bit, even though it looks like they're central, they all veer a little bit to the left. And if you remember in the first half, most of their gains came down
on our right,
down their left-hand side. But I'm surprised to see that Ben Davies was so as wide as he is, given that when we had the ball, we didn't really go down the left. And when we didn't have the ball, we struggled so much down our right. You would imagine that Ben Davies as a centre-back would have possibly, picked up on the fact that we were getting overrun and joined in a little bit to help. And the fact that that's his average position, that to me is a little bit, it's quite eye-opening. So it's a really, really good screenshot you've got there. And maybe that explains a little bit about why we struggled somewhat in the first half.
I might just, pull this down and, I'll maybe talk at the same time, because I can also look at what his, his heat map kind of looked like as well. Just give me a moment here, because what kind of fascinates me about that is I would say maybe he did have a pretty poor match rating, actually, to be fair.
Yeah, the 6.2 on SofaScore.
Yeah, and that's what I'm actually about to pull up as well. So not an advertisement of them, but
Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have mentioned their name, should I?
No, it's okay. No, it's okay. But I just want to maybe kind of clue in, on that heat map. Whoops, a bit too high there.
Very wide, very wide.
Let's go on
6.4,
his heat map right here. So yeah, spread very, very wide, like Sean was saying. My kind of thought is that maybe he's trying to, if the game is being played all the way over here, maybe he does want to, when the pass eventually comes over to his side, he wants to try to draw, the game over to his side, as well. You could maybe make that argument, but when the tactic take the distraction away from the right hand side, maybe.
I get it, but it's just interesting because I think if you also look at like Romero and Dyer, I think they had the most long balls as well. So it wasn't as though we were, after like the first 25 minutes, I know the first 25 minutes we were trying to play the ball out deep, and that's when the high press came. I know we're going to talk about that shortly, so I won't go on to that now, but it doesn't kind of add up as a tactic for him to have had he's so wide looking at that heat map, and yet when we didn't have the ball, they were going down the right hand side. You could excuse the heat map if they were going down our right, our left and his right. So he was pulled that way, but that seems like it's by a choice for him. Could
it also be because Reguilón stays so far wide? Maybe if we were to look at his as well, like he stays extraordinarily wide, and is practically almost capable of being pulled off the touchline by Conte. He's so far wide. Could it be that it's just the instructions of Conte? Maybe it's the risk that we're taking that. And I actually think it's connected to, we've brought this up before on this show. It's connected to the fact that when Sonny plays so through the middle.
Correct. Yeah.
We need somebody to keep the width, and it's going to then be the wing back. And if the wing back is keeping the width, this area is exposed. So Ben Davies ultimately then has a huge area to be kind of a commander of.
Correct. Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. Well made. Yeah, the fact that Sonny gets pulled in means that naturally someone has to fill the gap. Yeah, it's a good point. It's a really good point.
I just want to say quickly what we were talking about, Enby Martinez. I mean, yeah, like not a surprise. I mean, I'm not surprised he has a bad match rating with, all the goals that all the shots that were on target he conceded. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting. That heat map, just for me, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought he would have been naturally as wide as he was. But yeah. Sorry, mate. We can carry on now.
No. I think it was good questions to bring up. And to be fair, like Ben Davies didn't have a good game, so you could have actually been onto something there. Villa, just kind of those notes down at the bottom, I think really just explain it. They really did overwhelm us in the middle of the pitch. Digne and kind of was really responsible, I think, for keeping the width for them. Jacob Ramsey, I thought I kind of touted him as being one of the players I actually really liked going into this game, and I think he definitely showed that. A really, really good ball carrier. Coutinho kind of faded in and out of the game, would kind of drift and, pick up the ball, next to Douglas Luiz, would drop super deep. At other times, he would try to sit in behind, that half space of Bentancur and Højbjerg. I thought Coutinho didn't really have as huge of an impression on the game, even in the first half, if I'm being honest, as I probably would have expected, which probably just makes me a bit happy. Maybe it shows we did something right, maybe to a degree. But Villa did press very hard, with Watkins and Ings, and the reason being is that they're both very hardworking players. I think that's why they've made a successful career so far in the Premier League. Both of them is that they're very good at working hard off the ball, and it kind of makes sense then if you add kind of Coutinho in the middle, someone who's not very hardworking, you can kind of make up for some sort of semblance of a three-man press there. But Sean, we can go on to Spurs here, or is there anything maybe you want to talk about? Maybe some of these players.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with everything you just said. I thought Coutinho, he's a remarkable talent, isn't he? He's a brilliant player. Yeah. Set pieces, he's always a threat, and we saw that free kick that he put in, amazing. But yeah, I take your point. I think Watkins and I think Danny Ings works really hard. I think that they've got a lot of hardworking players, and Coutinho's a bit more of a freedom role. But during the game, I think you're right. He didn't shine on the day. I think he was good in moments, but also when he went missing, especially in the second half. So, yeah, I agree with everything you said there, mate.
Absolutely. Well, let's go on to Spurs. Also, again, not really too much different. I feel like from what we're used to, this is kind of me, Sean, trying to just show their average positions more or less, through kind of the tactics board there. So again, we see Emerson and Decky, really, close to each other. We see Reguilon, as high as, the striker. We see Ben Davies, kind of bit further wide, kind of like you noticed there. Eric Dyer and Romero kind of keeping the same sort of kind of lateral width. There, Højbjerg and Bentancur almost on top of each other, and actually being dragged a bit further to the right, you can kind of see as well. But I feel like maybe the only difference was that, yet again, the right-hand side was targeted. It always seems to be targeted most games, even when it's Doherty or Emerson, it seems to be the side that's targeted. The big problem, though, is that when it's Emerson, is that we seem to struggle to keep possession a bit more, Sean. So even if they're targeting that right-hand side with Doherty, we can keep possession a bit more, which means that you're not as overwhelmed, when you're even getting, kind of pressured on that side. So that's my worry with Emerson is even though we're going to get targeted down that side regardless, it's just the fact that he can't keep possession as well makes me think that we'll be even more kind of overwhelmed on that side.
100%. It's interesting about Emerson is that most of us who have watched him over the last, 6 months or whatever, we all kind of agree that he's not great going forward, but he is, he should be, or he's technically a better defender of the ball. But I think the problem is that I think it's all about football's about relationships, about synergies between players and stuff. And I genuinely feel like when Doherty was on the right, at least in the last month and a half, 2 months, and it's such a weird thing how football can change so quickly. It was only 2 months ago we were all wincing at the idea of Doherty playing on the right, and then he's done so well. And then we were like, okay, now you can play on the left, and we, whatever. But with Emerson, I don't think that I don't think that Romero, has the relationship. I'm not sure he trusts Emerson to be, clear of mind and have. I think the difference. I think Emerson, he's a bit rushed. He's a little bit kind of like he's unreliable, I guess, on the ball. To your point, right? Like it's not succinct what he wants to do. And so Romero doesn't know where he's going to be, whether he's going to do his job, gets pulled out. You saw it with the Ramsey thing where they both got passed through. Romero was kind of doing the job of two men. A lot of people that I've spoken to gave Romero really high stats. I personally didn't think Romero had as good a game as other people did, but I think that's because Romero doesn't understand how to play with Emerson yet. And the same problem, that whole right-hand side is a little bit weaker with Emerson in it, because the same relationships that exist between Romero and Emerson would also exist between Emerson and Højbjerg and Emerson and Kulusevski. And on every single one of those four different relationships, Doherty has got a better understanding of how they all play, and they all understand Doherty better than they do Emerson. So I take your point. If the ball's going down our left, down our right, then and it always has done ever since Serge Aurier, right? It always has done. They always attack down our right hand side, and I'm worried a little bit now. We go up against a decent Brighton side in a couple of days' time, and Brighton's left hand side is particularly good. You've got Trossard, you've got Cucurella. They've got a lot of energy down that side, and it is concerning that Emerson is not as stable and as steady a defensive head as Doherty is.
Yeah, my argument would be, I think it's hard to say which one of them. I would make the argument Emerson, no matter what, is still going to be a better defender. But the main problem is that Doherty is just going to keep the ball more, and that's sometimes in its own sense, a
Yeah.
better form of defense. Whereas Emerson's just going to put you under more pressure and more pressure and more pressure, and make, like we even saw with the heat maps, or with the players all being kind of drawn towards, shifted a bit more towards the right hand side. It wasn't as flat and even like we've seen before, and I think that had to do with Doherty not being on that right hand side and Emerson being out there, because the fact that we kept losing the ball, the fact that we couldn't really get out of our own half, and we kept getting targeted on that side, meant that players like Højbjerg and Bentancur, normally who would kind of be set right in the middle, kind of weirdly being on their average positions, just being drawn a bit further towards there, as well as you saw with Dyer and Romero, which just shows that it could be a future worry, we could say, maybe.
100%.
Figured we just kind of break down this little part right here. Kind of what we saw from the average positions of kind of Watkins, Coutinho, and Ings is that, like, right, it showed them kind of like this, but what it really was more or less any time that we kind of had the ball deep in our own half, what often would happen was Dyer, let's say in this position, I think it was even shown on Match of the Day, Dyer would pick up the ball in this sort of position. Ings and Watkins being kind of the harder workers does make sense. Instead of being through the middle and putting Coutinho out wide, they figured they would put Ings and Watkins, the harder workers, to kind of cover this more space, in case the ball were out there. Coutinho, all he has to do is just kind of come up to Dyer, force him to, make some sort of pass. The big kind of problem is that Ings and Watkins kind of actively were standing in front of Højbjerg and Bentancur, kind of forcing Dyer to make this sort of pass. Then Watkins, can press here. Coutinho doesn't really have to move. And then Ings can kind of drop deep a bit. And then Ramsey can kind of help out, maybe make, some sort of interception in this area. Digne can get pushed up. Then the center backs, can kind of, be able to maybe have some sort of semblance of who to cover. I think what maybe hurt them eventually, which we'll get onto, Sean, is that, as you can see, instead of trying to pass your way out of this, might as well just go for a bit of a long top, like long ball over the top to Harry Kane here. And you can see that goal that we scored already right in front of your eyes. But I think what we would say is a bit of credit to Villa, because this sort of press, they took all three of our center backs. They kind of occupied all three of them, made life difficult for them on the ball. Usually one of them has a lot of space, on the ball. I feel like one of them can kind of carry the ball forward, but they didn't allow that for us. And then also these sort of slip sort of passes into Højbjerg and Bentancur, they didn't really make easy either. And that was probably, in my eyes, the real reason why we really struggled, to get out of our own half, was just because they made the passes into those players who we trust the most to hold on to the ball. They made those passes difficult, which then meant that players like Emerson were going to be on the ball, a bit more. And then Emerson being on the ball a bit more, when we ask him to make, the crucial passes to get us out of the back, he's just going to, get overwhelmed. He's going to get flustered, and he started to get really, really rattled, which I think was maybe, now when I look at it, winning 4-0 is a bit comical, but at the moment certainly wasn't. But anything maybe you want to say here, Sean? Because I think what I'm trying to get at here is Villa did make life really difficult for us, and we couldn't get out of our own half. And that sort of press that I think I'm, taking a look at there might be the reason, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I think you nailed it. I think the difference between their press and other teams' press is that, like you said earlier, the hard-working effort of the forward line when they don't have the ball. It's rare. I'm not sure if there's many other teams where the forward line and the midfielders work as well with the high presses as Aston Villa do, at least for half. Aston Villa are known as a one-half football team. They do very well in one half of any game. Maybe it's that maybe they run out of steam because it's exhausting doing this stuff. But I think the combination of Watkins and Danny Ings and Ramsey and McGinn supporting Coutinho,
6 or I guess 5 very hardworking players right there. You're right.
Yeah, they all move together. When Dyer gets the ball and passes to Romero looks up and then sees no one available. It's a combination of three factors. One of them is the fact that all 5 of those midfielders are joining the attack and suppressing and doing that press very, very effectively. The other, I think, on this particular game was that throughout the first half, certain players had been hacked down and chopped down very aggressively, and Aston Villa were. And, that does throw certain teams off. Even if you're not the recipient of the hit, if you see one of your teammates getting chopped down, like we saw with Doherty,
like we saw with with Decky. Both of those happened in the first 15 minutes of the game. That kind of press, that kind of aggression can certainly throw people off because they know how delicate the squad is. They know how there's only 7 games left in the season. Maybe people are a little bit more, less willing to go and get the ball if they think they're going to get hit by one of those, steam trains coming through. And I think the other thing is that I think that Emerson Royale is not possibly as focused to try and find the space. So when you see,
he can see the space, to be fair,
right? Yeah, and it's not just him, because I think in the first half Bentancur was really poor as well. When he would come back, when we did play out from the back, and you saw Romero give the ball to Dyer or Dyer back to Romero, and they were looking for someone. There was very few spots because the Aston Villa players were doing that kind of widespread, but also the Tottenham players were not moving as fast, not finding space as quickly as they should. Plus the fear of getting hit. I think that trifecta, all compounded on itself and resulted in a situation where we really struggled to get the ball out from the back.
Yeah, and I think maybe, Sean, final question, with that, what they basically were trying to make us do, right, was get the ball to maybe players like Emerson that are really uncomfortable for us, and Emerson had to make, let's say the pressure comes from Ramsey, comes from Watkins. Emerson has to make either this pass, which is probably going to be very difficult, or has to make this pass, which is going to be difficult. And that was probably the reason why he was, kind of giving the ball away so many times. Whereas maybe Doherty in this sort of scenario does actually make maybe a clever pass here, or does maybe put himself in the right position to make, the pass a bit easier on himself, whereas someone like Emerson might not. I just wanted to also quickly show when we were kind of showing, when Dyer and was being forced to make whatever pass here, and these passes are being taken away from the midfield. What we did see though was when it gets maybe passed out wide to someone like Romero, and this kind of pressure comes on, this sort of people get kind of all drawn towards the ball. That's what we kind of saw. McGinn gets drawn towards, Douglas Luiz gets drawn towards. Harry Kane draws himself towards, maybe unnaturally or naturally. Son starts to kind of drift in. And we saw that this pass, instead of trying to play out through some sort of, elaborate combination, tiki-taka, what you really can just do is just maybe find a route one ball to either Decky here or to Harry Kane. And that was kind of the way out of this. And do you think that was an instruction by Conte, Sean, or do you think that was something we were doing from the beginning and it really only started working out in the second half?
No, I think the instruction in the first half was to play the ball deep. I think the first goal that we scored inside of 3 or 4 minutes came as a result of this like setup that you're pointing out. And then I forget who it was who put the ball up. Was it Dyer? It was Dyer, I think. Yeah, I think that was just a random. Dyer looks up and goes, "Okay, I don't have any other options because of all this press. Let's just do that." And then what happened. But then after that, for the next 35 minutes, we would, whenever we'd get a goal kick, we still have two central defenders joining Lloris in the box, and trying to do the pass out. So I think the tactic in the first half was to play the ball out. I think it was only at half time when Conte probably had the conversation and said, "Okay, that's not working. Let's just go a bit more direct when you have to." And then we'll talk about that shortly, I guess. Yeah.
And maybe even the directness was, like maybe they said go direct in the beginning, but then they probably detailed it a bit more, maybe even, made it more specific about what they really wanted that direct sort of ball to look like. But like you said, about to break down a bit more of it. And if you are enjoying the show, everybody, do hit that like while you are in here. And as well, feel free to throw in a super chat as well. But also Sean's channel is tagged in the title as well. So do head on over to Spurs Talk Show. He's been an excellent kind of duo with me tonight, and I think he's definitely bringing a new element to this that, to be fair, even to Dave, is saying some things I haven't heard Dave say this season, which is nice breath of fresh air. But we are going to break down the goal scored, so do hope everybody enjoys these animations. This was Son's 3rd minute goal that I kind of tried to recreate. Went kind of very far back in time on this goal here, but I think what makes it kind of interesting is, again, it's sort of a long ball, from some sort of, kind of passing back situation. We ended up, trying to break them down here, Sean. We tried to, break them down through the middle, and it just ended up being a Doherty back pass to Eric Dyer that Eric Dyer just sent long to Harry Kane. Harry Kane, hits it into Matty Cash's midriff, and then Sonny just buries it like an absolute ruthless assassin, like you said, during the day. I'm not really sure how clever, how brilliant this goal really was, but I think, like you said, it just exemplifies that sort of, maybe I think it actually really shows exactly what you were saying was, try to break them down. But if, all else fails, maybe throw in a direct ball, here now and again. And I think that's what we were doing in the first half. And maybe that's what that, 3rd-minute goal showed, was 100%. We tried to break them down, and then we just decided just to go long, after we couldn't.
I think that this goal happened in like the 4th minute or the 3rd minute, right? So I think at this particular point, it wasn't a design. Eric Dyer at this point, none of the Tottenham team had received any of the hard hits. Like, we weren't getting pressured too much before this had happened. This was the first attacking moment of the game, so everyone was just feeling each other out. So I don't think this was a result of Eric Dyer realizing, we can't necessarily push out. I think it was just that was the opportunity. Let's just go long, see what happens. Sometimes you just throw enough mud at the wall and see what sticks. And you're right, it wasn't particularly pretty. On another day, Harry Kane's shot wouldn't have been blocked by Matty Cash, and it would have gone out to the corner flag. But so I don't think there was too much to take away from this. But what I do think should have happened earlier than it did was they should have remembered this moment in the 15th minute, in the 25th minute, in the 35th minute, that there was an easy way to get the ball up the field.
Yeah.
And it was via direct, because we spent too long trying to play the ball out from the defense. And there was, like I say, there was 7 chances that Aston Villa had. I know we spoke about that. But after 3 of them, Tottenham should be aware and say, okay, that they're pressing too much and we're uncomfortable playing it out from the back. Remember what happened in the 4th minute? Eric Dyer just puts a simple ball up the top, and then we got a goal from it. Let's do more of that. It took until the halftime team talk for that to become an effective strategy. And it shouldn't have taken that long. But in this particular moment, I think nobody was aware of exactly what Aston Villa's game plan was. So,
do you think when you go a goal up, is that what kind of happens? You go a goal up, maybe you're kind of like, we don't want to go long ball. Let's try to, break this team down. Let's try to, take the sting out of the game. Let's try 100%. To make them not want to play football. Do you think that's what it ended up being, and it kind of hurt us, to our own detriment?
Yeah, I think especially because most of the time, we on the, on all of our pre-match pump-ups and previews, we're always talking about, the early goal will settle us down, especially if there's low block, or especially if, whatever these teams are going to do, the longer the games go on when it's 0-0, it's frustrating. If we get the first goal, we can then go on and play the ball as we always do. Harry Kane can come deep and we can thread passes. But going 1-0 up against Aston Villa, none of that played out. It was almost like we went 1-0 down against a Chelsea or a Liverpool, where they suddenly started to come after us. It was a weird scenario where we're playing against a team that's going to finish 12th, but they were playing us off the park after they went 1-0 down. So it was very, very bizarre and abnormal.
Almost like a shock to the system, I feel like, that we gave them, and also they have a reputation, and I said this, I think, in the preview along with you, they have a reputation, Villa, of not starting off first halves well. And the fact that we had scored that early, I think, really just like gave them that big wake up call, geez, like we need to wake up here. Because I think also as well, the fact that it was at home, let's say that happened at our own stadium, we probably could have maybe kind of cruise controlled through it. But and maybe away from home, it's kind of a different story. They're just going to.
And they were on the back of a humiliating defeat to Wolves, right? And Aston Villa against Wolves is it's almost like Tottenham, Arsenal to those guys,
right?
And they lost at home to them. I think it was at home. I'm not sure. I think it was at home. So to them to go 1-0 down, the fan base probably made some noise and they had to react. So yeah, it was a really interesting. It was a strange dynamic, Jack, to have the upper hand and to be playing against a team that you think when you're 1-0 up you should be able to go on cruise, but not. And then suddenly you're getting played off the park. Like in that 20-minute period, 30-minute period, it was like we were playing against a monster team. And it was very strange. It was unusual.
Very unusual. Not something we don't like. Not something we're used to. We don't like being, treated that sort of way. Kulusevski's 50th. Let's go on to that. I thought a very clutch goal, a very clutch finish, exactly what we're looking for. Came from a corner, which I will say, I've never recreated the corners, which was absolute chaos, as you can see. It's like bees, like trying to, get out of their shell or something.
Nice.
It's like bees getting out of the hive in the morning. Like, it really is quite hilarious to see them, like, all kind of get out of it. But what happens is, right, we, do a corner in. Ball gets cleared by, I think, Tyrone Mings. It gets to Højbjerg. Højbjerg goes for a nice kind of volley, but then that gets cleared to Emerson. Emerson goes for kind of a back pass to Lloris. Lloris then sends it long to Harry Kane. Harry Kane finds Kulusevski. Kulusevski kind of buries it. And Kulusevski kind of makes this sort of, I kind of make it look a bit faster, the run that he makes here. If you keep your eye on him, he's highlighted in yellow. It wasn't that quick of a run that he makes through there, but he kind of just starts drifting towards Harry Kane as
unmatched
kind
as
of
well,
plays
right?
that long ball. And then he just makes also a really nice finish, I thought, Sean, and kind of makes Tyrone Mings look a bit silly, because Tyrone Mings here, he looked like he had everything under control, was squaring him up and everything. And then Kulusevski just cleverly just waits until he makes that extra step and just finishes it right through his legs.
Yeah, I think this is a fantastic graphic, mate. It's a really, really, really well done in recreating this. I think this is obviously it's like the 52nd minute. It's very early in the 50th minute, right? So it's early in the second half. I think this is the first example of the tactic of going long. I'm not sure if there was a moment before then where we did it, but obviously
we did it with the Dyer goal too. Both goals have been going long.
So this was sorry. But I think the first goal was more of a by accident, by chance. I don't think that was a tactic. I think this was at the start of the second half. We've just come out. We're 1-0 up, but we shouldn't be 1-0 up if it wasn't for Lloris. And I think the halftime team talk would have included, okay, let's go more direct, because that's where we can have some success. And we can, if they're going to do the press, we can just cut out the midfield. And Emerson gets the ball there and doesn't need to necessarily go back to Lloris, but he does. Obviously, I think that's a deliberate, tactic. Get it back and then let Lloris go long. So this is the first instance of Conte's team talk being, manifested, I guess, in real life. Lloris puts the ball over, and for what to your point, Becky just drifting across unmarked. I mean, it's blissful to see him take that ball as well, and that shot was just a sublime finish. So it was a great tactical change at halftime, and then played out by a team that listened and affected that change in reality. And I'm so glad that it happened to Kulusevski to get that ball, because I've said to you 1,000 times now, how worried I was about him not having the confidence. I don't ever want him to feel like he's third fiddle, and that he always has to pass to Sonny or Kane because they're the guys that score the goals. And he didn't do that. He got the chance and he took it. And it was a fantastic finish with his left foot into the bottom right-hand corner. Beautiful.
Delicious finish. And I think what really I liked about that finish was it's kind of what actually, strikers more or less do. Just when, you as a center back, kind of think that you have it under control, they kind of wait for you to make that extra sort of shuffle. You open up, kind of the gates, between the legs, and then they just slot it right through there. And I think it's exactly what Kulusevski did. Made, Tyrone Mings look a bit foolish there. And especially for someone of his age, 21 years old, to make someone like Tyrone Mings look really foolish on two separate occasions, I think it's just absolutely glorious. Son in the 66th. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Sean. Yeah.
No. I was agreeing with you.
Son in the 66th here. Trying to remember actually this goal. To be fair,
is this a beautiful header from Harry Kane? It's a little glancing.
This is the beautiful header. This is the beautiful header. It is. Yeah, it's kind of sped up a bit too much, so I do apologize, everybody. But this one, like we said, Højbjerg picks it up, gets it to Romero. Romero plays that beautiful pass into Harry Kane. We were almost kind of showing that, with the bit of the press that they were putting on earlier. You can kind of see a version of it with the front three trying to press us in that sort of shape. We were a bit higher up the pitch, though, which is probably just a condition of us, being kind of a bit further ahead in terms of the goals. Romero plays that pass into Harry Kane, who drops a bit deep, and then it makes that look. If only I could make him, do that sort of, look that everybody's obsessed about, Sean. But I couldn't recreate that, unfortunately.
Could you at least recreate the shoulder of Harry Kane just coming up as like a...
Can't even recreate the hair either, which is unfortunate. But fine, Sonny with a beautiful finish to the near post of Martinez. I think we've seen this goal 1,000 times, but yes, I guess when you really think about it, maybe the first goal, like you said, Sean, I kind of agree. Does that really count as like an intentional sort of long ball approach? Probably not. But this is now more or less 2 for 2, in terms of goals from that long ball approach.
Yeah, I definitely think the halftime team talk was just to go more direct, right? I think Conte would have said something like, well, look, we're not even sure if Aston Villa have got the stamina to be able to continue the high press. We know that Aston Villa are a one-half football team. they always play better in one half, whether it's the first or the second, and they're sloppy and slow in the second. And the same thing happened against us. And if you look at that graphic again, you'll see that when we get the ball back, Aston Villa are not pressing. Like the forward line are 10 yards behind the ball, right? Like they're not quite there as much as
pushed a bit further back. Yeah,
pushed a bit further back, and whether that's a combination of their stamina not being there and the fact that Tottenham's stamina is far better than most teams. I think we still have the most yards per game, combined carry. But it's a pretty simple goal, right? It's a pretty simple goal in its tactics. We know Romero can deliver a long ball. He's got the space to do it. Danny Ings is 5-6 yards away from him, so he got the time to pick it out. And the flick on from Harry Kane, some people might look at that and think, oh, it's just an easy little, just gentle flick. But it was so deliberate, in my opinion, not to give him too much credit, but I think where credit's due, he had to take a little bit of the sting out of the ball, because had he missed it, or had it just glanced off of his head, it could have gone on a little bit too far and would have put Sonny into a more difficult position. He hit it with just enough to take a different angle on the ball so that Sonny could meet it, and also just took enough of the pace out of the ball as well, so that it just fell at Sonny's feet. It was one of the most delicious headers and one of the best direct goals. One of the, even though it looks simple, I don't think it was. And I think that Harry Kane needs to take a lot of credit for that, for how much of the sting he took out of that ball. It was fantastic. And obviously Sonny then just does his thing. There is nobody in the league who gets a through ball, a one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and then scores with the ratio that he does. So the
definition of a cushioned header, by Harry Kane, or a glancing header by the looks of it, to play him through it. Just absolutely beautiful, I must say.
Yeah.
Sonny, this is his hat trick recreated here for you guys. This one I'm also this one I actually really liked as well. This was actually a bit more of a Conte sort of ball approach, and this one actually wasn't as much of a long ball, goal. This one was actually a really good goal. I would actually encourage everybody, if you're able to just go back and rewatch this whole goal, because it does start deep in our own half, actually. Villa were giving us a bit of pressure here. They were kind of working it around our 18. We won the ball back through some sort of Emerson tackle, I think, Sean. Emerson then plays kind of a funny pass past Luca Digne, shoulders him off to the side, leaves him in the dust. Then Decky finds Emerson again. Emerson plays it to Højbjerg. It's actually a few kind of one-touch passes, which is nice. Sonny then gets played through with Harry Kane, kind of draws two defenders. I believe he draws Douglas Luiz, kind of out of position on top of the center back, Ezri Konsa. Then he finds Decky again. Decky absolutely puts Tyrone Mings on the ground with that shiftiness, with those body feints, just all that delicious stuff from Decky that we're used to. Finds Sonny, and probably the third goal, maybe the best of the finishes, you could say. I guess the first goal is a ridiculous finish, because the fact that he just kind of, half volleys, I don't know if it's half volley, but, just sort of like ball in the middle of the box, just kind of hits it with his left foot and buries it. The first one is pretty impressive, but this third one, I thought was pretty impressive the way he did finish it, actually. The way he was hit, I think he hits it with his right foot, kind of far post, into the top corner. Is a very good finish.
Yep. Yeah, it was a fantastic finish, and Sonny, I think, on the back of that goal with his right foot, I forget the statistic, but I think he's up there in like the top 3 or 4. I might butcher this one, but it's something like the most amount of goals scored with your weaker foot in the Premier League. I think he's up there. I forget the stat.
I wouldn't be surprised.
It's insane. But I think this particular goal, whilst it was Sonny's hat trick, I genuinely think that on this particular occasion, that you really need to look at Decky and give the plaudits to him, where he initially picked the ball up, down
picks it up
towards
almost
the
in
corner
our own
flag.
18 yard. Picks it up right here.
Yeah, right on the. There you go. See, right on the corner flag. Right. Right on the 18-yard box, and he just drifts and drifts and drifts all the way through. Gets past, like, Luiz gets pulled out because of Son's movement. But then when he gets the ball into the box, when he receives it back, he gets the ball. He has this ability, like I've said 1,000 times, and I know you do as well, Jack, that he could look up and absorb and observe what is the best thing to do with the ball. His decision making is second to none. For someone of his age, he can look up, he can hold the ball off, like what he did with, obviously, like he floored Tyrone Mings, but it's just the fact that he doesn't mind waiting. If he needs to wait a couple of seconds and let people catch up, he's got all the time in the world. His mind is working faster than anybody's feet. And on this particular occasion, he starts the ball 80. He gets the ball 80 yards away, just drifts, dribbles. No one's picking him up. Gets the ball back, and I just think, I think this particular goal, like I say, it's right that you give the plaudits for Sonny because he gets the hat trick, and it was a great finish with his weaker foot. But actually, I think it doesn't happen without the intelligence of Decky, and I love the guy so much.
Do you think that was our nicest goal in the day? I think it's probably no competition.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no competition.
It was nice to see, that despite all the long ball, Route 1 sort of goals that we did sort of go for, it was nice to see that we did finish off with the goal that, like we saw, everybody started deep in our own half. And it wasn't even really a counterattack like it sort of was. It wasn't like a blistering counterattack with, really devastating pace or anything. It was kind of, Villa deep in our half, trying to work the ball around. Emerson, I think, just pokes it away from somebody, then is put under a bit of pressure for the first time all game, somehow gets himself out of the pressure in that third moment. And then Luca Digne, just once I think it was like Emerson must have megged him or like something or whatever, kind of embarrassed him with a pass, and Luca Digne just kind of gave up at that stage as well, which was nice to see. And then it just, became like some sort of easy 1-2 kind of, out of the press. Højbjerg finds Kane finds Son draws a lot of players, kind of away as well, which makes that space for Decky. It was just, a beautiful goal.
It was a beautiful goal, mate. It really was,
yeah. And
then about 10 minutes later, wasn't Lucas? Did Lucas Digne
the Romero thing happened later?
Yeah, he dislocated his shoulder. It looked like he dislocated his shoulder because he walks off like holding. Don't mess with our Romero.
Don't mess with the Romero. But yeah, Luca Digne not having a good day that day for sure. But everybody, that was the end of all the animations. Do hope you enjoyed them. I think probably my favorite one might have been the recreation of the corner, just to see that many people, kind of sprint out of the box. It was like, I don't know, it was like just like a beehive or something like that. But we're going to wrap up with a bit of the stats on all the players that we thought maybe were the most crucial or maybe had the most significant performances. Sonny, of course, 3 goals, 1 shot creating action, 1 goal creating action, 2 players dribbled past, 3 shots, 3 goals, expected goals on the day, 0.7. The guy was a ruthless assassin, Sean, and you called him the smiling assassin. This was probably one of the most clinical performances, I'm not even kidding, by any sort of striker that I've seen in like a bit of time, because like we even said when we first watched the game, we were like, not sure if we really deserved that score line whatsoever. And it was probably thanks to just Sonny's brutal finishing.
Yeah, he's insane, and a couple of times this season, like nine times out of 10, I don't think he's quite like, let's say 7 times out of 10, you can rely on him to always do the business. Yesterday, on Sunday, he was just on a different level. Every single chance he took. And when he wasn't taking chances, he was creating chances. In hindsight, I gave Hugo Lloris the man of the match. I actually withdrew that on my own channel on Sunday. I think it was Sunday morning. It should have gone to Sonny. He was a different level. And look, I also last night I watched the Liverpool highlights again, the 2-2 draw that we did earlier on in the season. If Sonny can do what if he can reach 85% of what he did against Villa, against Liverpool when we go to Anfield in May, I think it's early May. The only reason we only drew that game against Liverpool was because Sonny didn't bring his first touch and his shooting boots that day.
Yeah, and neither did Dele, I guess.
Neither did Dele, right? I think Sonny could have had. I know he scored 1, but he probably could have scored 4 or 5. If we can get the similar tune out of him that we had tomorrow against Liverpool, I think we go and smash Anfield. I think we smash Liverpool at Anfield. I think we're with a perfect setup. And this guy is. I'd love to ask you a question, Jack. Like,
go ahead.
If Harry Kane is worth 130 million with 2 years left on his contract, what is Sonny worth with 5-6 years left on his contract? And he's 20, same age. He's a little bit younger than Harry Kane, and all the stats. I don't have all the stats to my hand, but
isn't he actually slightly older? Actually, isn't he slightly older?
He might maybe slightly older, yeah. But if Harry Kane is worth 130, what is Sonny worth? Sonny's got.
I think Sonny's actually
assists,
more invaluable.
Goals.
I think he's more invaluable because he's also a commercial asset that I think is invaluable. Because Sonny sells more shirts than almost any player in world football. when you
Correct.
think about it. So if you were to make Sonny move to some new club, like think about the shirt revenue that would come with that. And then I bet whatever club like us that would be selling would be like, we want, some portion of that, and I think
Yeah.
so. It would be, I think he's just as valuable as
Just as
Harry Kane,
valuable.
to be fair. I think it's just as valuable. And I think
so as well.
and this is probably a harsh reality for some people, but Sonny sells more shirts than Harry Kane, just period. And my feeling is that also kind of makes it so that like Sonny is probably harder for Daniel Levy to get rid of than Harry Kane. And this might be tough to maybe say out loud, but it might be harder for Daniel Levy to rationalize getting rid of Sonny than it would be Harry Kane. Because with Sonny, it's like an invaluable market asset.
Yeah.
Whereas with Harry Kane, it's like great footballer. It's like more, it's more kind of like, it's more kind of, sympathetic or, like sentimental. Whereas Sonny, it's like financially, sentimentally,
That's
all
what
the
Daniel Levy
reasons
worries
would be
about,
like,
doesn't
don't
it?
sell, don't sell, don't sell. Whereas
Yeah.
Harry Kane, it's more like stats, sentimental reasons, don't sell. But Sonny gives you that extra reason not to sell, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. I would even go as far as to say I think that Sonny's price tag is probably higher than Harry Kane's, even though I think Harry Kane is
for some of those reasons we mentioned.
Priceless. I'm not. It's a difficult one, but I think we've got two of the best players in world football, at our club. So
I find that I think what you and I, Sean, should do a show on that because I find that conversation actually fascinating about which one, if you were to sell, which one is like technically more valuable.
Who would you rather let go of? Yeah.
Because then if you really would have put yourself in that sort of business sort of mindset, I think you could make really good cases, for Sonny.
100%.
Harry Kane here, 2 assists on the day. Most shot creating actions, most goal creating actions, most players dribbled past, most key passes completed, and then 5 out of 5 long passes completed as well on the day. He is our creator. The stats every single game show that. Over the course of the season, it's kind of starting to reflect that as well. It's actually, I think the funniest part is Lucas Moura, when he was playing for us, was dominating and like players dribbled past. But like you said, Sean, Lucas or Harry Kane's kind of caught up to players like Lucas and Sonny because he does that, half turn and spins his man when he receives it with his back to goal. And that definitely does count as
a dribble.
Dribbling past somebody. And so he's
stat padding. He's learned from Harry Winks.
Right, exactly. He's stat padding on the player's dribble pass where he's actually doing it so many times a game that he's probably, if I were to go to FB Ref right now, I feel like he would actually be quite high up there for strikers in terms of players dribbled past, per game. I think he'd be quite high up there. He's not like St. Maximin levels, which is like 6 a game. But he's now the highest for Spurs, which is pretty significant.
Wow.
I don't know. It's interesting, but he also has the best creative stats. No question on this team as well.
Look at that as well. Long passes completed, 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Really another beautiful day, creatively.
Insane.
From him.
And we didn't even put him in the top 4 for the man of the match, did we?
I think we did.
Did we? I thought we had Lloris, Højbjerg.
Yeah, we might have put Højbjerg in there.
Lloris, Højbjerg, Sonny, and who was the last one we had?
Kulusevski.
Yeah, Kulusevski. Yeah.
We might have. You're right. We might have, but not this time. When you looked at the match stats, just for this show, had to take out, the bias. Had to put him in here just for the match stats alone. But another good display for Big Age.
Yeah.
Going on to Decky, 2 goals or 1 goal, 1 assist, I believe, from him on that day. 1 shot creating action, 1 goal creating action, most carries into the penalty area.
Oh, wow.
And the most touches in the attacking penalty area. So you actually had the most touches in the opposing box on the day, and then also had 5 progressive carries. Considering that we were actually under the cosh so much this game, it is actually quite funny how low some of our creative stats really are this game, though. Like even Harry Kane's just aren't nearly as high as what you normally expect. Same with Sonny's. Like Sonny stats, despite having 3 goals, are not the stats of somebody that you would think would have 3 goals that day. And so it is kind of also a bit interesting that, maybe even Decky, when you look at 1 shot creating action, 1 goal creating action, despite the 1 goal creating action, only 1 shot creating action is not very good actually when taken into account. So,
but he only had 24 touches of the ball,
right?
And the same with Sonny. Both of them only had 24 touches of the ball, and to do what they did with it,
it's mad. Actually, it's insane because I don't think I've ever seen some of our offensive players have so few touches of the ball and at the same time win a game with a scoreline like 4-0. Never happened. Like 24 touches of the ball for this guy, and with that he scores one and assists one. For Sonny to only touch the ball 24 times, and with that to score 3 times, madness, absolute madness. Our conversion, if there was just a stat of like that could summarize ball utilization, like how many times do you get the ball and how many times do you do something positive with it, it would be an awesome stat to see. And that might include like carries, touches in penalty area, progressive passes, progressive carries, shots or assists, or key passes. If you could summarize that through an algorithm and then just see how many times that you get the ball, do you actually do something positive with it? I think you'd see Kulusevski at the very highest level on that. I think the guy's absolutely phenomenal. I can't tell you how much I love him. I just can't wait until he signs his contract so I can go and get raid my piggy bank to get the most expensive Tottenham shirt ever for the amount of letters.
Just give me an idea, to maybe create some sort of stat, that positive actions per 90, sort of like something like that, Sean. Maybe I'll make a living with that because they do that, I think, at baseball. They recreate, stats using other stats and
use stats to make it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
so
you could put a weighting
per 90.
Yeah, put a certain weighting on, like if it's a goal or an assist, you get a 0.8. Right. If it's just a pass that's going forward, it's only a 0.2. If you could figure out like
8 smiley faces per 90, 8 smiley actions per 90.
Very good.
Lloris on the day, 8 shots on target against, 8 saves, post-shot expected goals. This is actually, I think, what Bob is talking about, though, here, Sean. So what was expected to go in that day was only 0.6. And the expected goals, I think, was 1.6. But considering it's like taking a look at the shots on target that he actually faced, and then looking at the XG, it's kind of like this post shot minus the expected goals. So like the value of that shot going in minus the expected goal value. And
so what does that mean? Does that mean that we shouldn't have conceded a goal, or of the 8, each of them had a 0.6 on average, therefore we should have conceded 4.5 goals? Is that what he's saying?
I think what it is that of the 8 shots, he should have saved all of them. Basically, it's what it's saying. Because if it had a post-shot expected goals of like 1, it would then mean that one of those goals would have been likely to have gone in. But the fact that it is at 0.6 suggests that most of the shots that Hugo faced were very savable, or at least should be savable. Is like I think the object is that it should be savable.
Well, still though, he looked very classy when he was doing. Even if he was being flamboyant, overly, if he was being over the top with his movements. The only one that looked a bit sloppy was when he went down to save to his left, and the ball hit his wrist or his arm, and then flicked up, and then he got up and caught it. That was the only one where he looked a little bit sloppy. The rest of them looked very classy to me,
Yeah. Defensive actions outside of penalty area, just 1. Long passes completed, 2 out of 5. Crosses stopped versus crosses faced. He faced 11 and stopped 2 of them. Probably not as active outside, his penalty areas we probably would like him to be. But then again, I think that really mostly happens when it's kind of like, through balls and behind, kind of those sort of things. That's when you have to do that. And then in terms of crosses stopped versus crosses faced, I'm not really a good goalkeeper analyst of any kind, so I'm not really going to make any criticisms, but sometimes we do want Hugo to be a bit more aggressive,
But he seemed like there was at least a couple, but that's probably the 2 that I mentioned here. 2 times he did come out and claim the ball, and I mentioned it after the game to you guys, and I think, or maybe you or Dave mentioned to me, I forget how it happened, but we've always said, he never comes out and claims the ball. But there were at least a couple of times in that game that he did come out and catch the ball that were crosses, and he did take them off of the. Like if he didn't do that, then there was a player, Danny Ings or someone, that was going to head the ball, towards goal. So I'd imagine that crosses stopped versus crosses faced would be lower than that usually, because I don't think on any other given Sunday you don't usually see him come and take crosses ever. So the fact that he took 2 might be a little bit of an improvement versus what we normally see from him.
Yeah, actually, yeah, you're probably right, actually, to be fair. And maybe, I'm not sure if that even includes corners. Maybe it does, but still, that actually is probably more than actually maybe what we're used to. You might be right about that. Lessons learned on the day. I'm just going to be plugging your channel in the chat while we kind of go over these. I think these are kind of just wrapping up points, Sean, kind of on the whole, day. The first one is Spurs can be quite ruthless in front of goal. As I think, maybe what we're finding out. Could that be maybe the secret to our, maybe path to top 4 is that while maybe teams like Arsenal create this sort of beautiful football, they don't exactly have a ruthless goal scorer, and we do. And maybe we even have 3 of them, you could say.
Yeah. I mean, I'll hold tight on Kulusevski for his goal scoring. I think he's a brilliant creator. I still want to, I think that next season, I'd be surprised if he doesn't get 10 goals next season, which would be fantastic, right? From the third man, it'd be fantastic. But we are ruthless. We are absolutely I've never seen a Tottenham side that was come on. Every good team plays badly on certain games. Every good team has days where you're under the cosh, and it's what separates the good teams from the also rans is do you find a way to get it done? And we didn't just find a way to get it done. We ended up winning 4-0. It's a new look, and Tottenham absolutely are ruthless. I mean, the fact that Sonny only had 3 shots on goal and scored with all 3 of them, the fact that Harry Kane only touched the ball, he only touched the ball 35 times or 40 times, and the flick-ons, it's juicy. It's like, is the juice worth the squeeze? When you pick one orange from the tree and you squeeze it, and you can fill up 10 glasses with the juice, then there's value there, and that's what Tottenham are currently doing. Even if we're not playing particularly well, and we can it's not feeding the 5,000. It's like quenching the thirst of 62,000 fans. It's amazing what we're doing right now. And the only negative to take away from the game, obviously, was Doherty's injury. So that's what we're going to talk about on future shows, I guess, before Saturday. Right. But we are ruthless, 100%.
Another one is maybe Harry Kane continuing to sacrifice goals for assists. We even see it in his average position. We see it with the fact that even players like Kulusevski are having more touches in the box than him. So it is kind of, Harry Kane, especially I think when we are maybe, struggling in the creative department, we just have Harry Kane, take on the Eriksen role. And that's where that joke kind of comes in. It's like Harry Kane plays the Eriksen role when we have that Eriksen void that we seem to sometimes see. It seems like Harry Kane can just step up and do that. But another one is Lloris can still keep us in games. And we had been doubting Lloris a lot recently, Sean. So this one, I think is nice to see that, with the, the doubts that came from this channel. I mean, we'll be honest, surrounding Lloris, it's nice to see that he can be a good goalkeeper that can actually win us games.
100%, mate. You already said it. I've called him out. I think we all have on the channel. He needed to. It literally happened in the build up to the game. We were talking about, how does Lloris, rectify some of the mistakes? How do we regain faith in him? You asked me that question, and I said he needs to pull out a worldie.
Yes, right.
Just one worldie, and that will get his confidence back. And he pulled that out in the
day of.
The day of, like 2 hours later, he pulls out one worldie, and then he goes on to make 6 others.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on.
It was fantastic. It's fantastic to see him doing it. And that's why he's the French captain. Form is temporary, class is permanent, and it's great to see. It makes me feel so much more reassured that we've still got a guy who is going to keep us in games and can be the game changer for Tottenham. So it leaves us with a bit more time and a little bit more wiggle room in trying to find his overall replacement, because he still obviously has it in him, and fair play to him.
Yeah, I think well broken down there, Sean. And it's nice to see that he did it the day of the moment. Midfield overwhelmed. Yeah, I think another example of that. But to be fair, the best way to get through that is just, when you put 4 people in the midfield, can you really match that? probably not. You just have to go through, some other way of going about it, which is just that long ball over the top, which is just bypass the midfield, make the midfield worthless, make it, kind of useless, more or less, is kind of what we kind of went for. I feel like that then connects to is using the long ball to break the press is maybe kind of a lesson learned from this is you don't always need intricate sort of, build up play to get through the press. You don't need to be, kind of like, like an Arsenal, like a Pep or, Pep Guardiola, Sean. You don't need to keep it on the floor, and, make these intricate sort of patterns. Sometimes all you need is just a good center back that can pick his head up and find somebody that's a bit open, play that long ball to him, and then just bypass that whole press.
Yeah, it makes you like it adds another feather to our cap, another string to our bow. Like if you are, Graham Potter, that's already lost 2 games against Tottenham this season with us, scoring 6 goals in the process. How do you how do you set your team up? You've already lost against us twice at home and away. Your best players played well in both the games, and yet we still came away. And yet since then, since those games, we've also been able to go on to better form than when we were playing you previously. And we've now been able to shake off the low block, been able to shake off the aggressive option for what other teams do. And now we've also shown that if push comes to shove, we can just flick the ball up with the accuracy that we have in long balls from people like Romero, Dyer, or Ben Davies. And you've got a Harry Kane who can put the most delectable touches on headers, and you've got Sonny behind. Like if you are Brighton, if you are a Leicester, if you are a Brentford, and you're saying we've got to play Tottenham next, how
do you go about it?
How do you set up against Tottenham right now when every other style has been tried and been overcame? It's a brilliant thing.
Really well said there, Sean. Last one, giving the ball away a bit too easily. I think we've seen that a lot this season, though, in certain games. You could point to a lot of examples, even under Conte, under Nuno. It's just been something I think that has to do with a bit of quality as well. It just has to do with sometimes the way that teams set up against us, and we just kind of struggle to make sense of it. And I think a bit of it more has to probably do with quality when you kind of, look at things. Like lots of times Emerson on the ball, maybe if he just has a better first touch, maybe if he just has an idea of what he's going to do with it before he receives it, we probably wouldn't give the ball away too often. Same thing with Eric Dyer. Eric Dyer will take like 7 touches on the ball when it's just not needed, because then that makes it so that whoever he passes it to has to make a split second sort of decision when he had all the time in the world, to make his sort of decision. So I think it's something that we've seen a pattern of. To be fair, Adrian Chia saying feels like Conte's been focusing on finishing drills. Maybe it could be the case, but it actually could be the case because Sean, I think we've had the 3rd most big chances missed, this season out of any team behind Liverpool and Man City. And then when I do think about it, there have been a lot of sitters, some pretty bad sitters this season from some players, Harry Kane included, Sonny included.
Yeah, less so of late though. Right.
Yeah, less so of late. True.
I feel like we've become more clinical in the last ever since the Leeds game. I think seemed to be some sort of turning point when we beat Leeds 4-0, 5-0. What was it? And then we played Everton. I think since then we seem to have gone on this rotation where we now seem to be finishing our dinner. To Adrian's point, hopefully I'd love to be. Drills. I'd love to be a fly on the. I would pay a lot of money to go and just observe. One training session. I don't even know if it's possible, but if it's not, I still love to just see what it is that we do, over a week to be able to, for him, what is the difference? Like, what is it that him and his coaching staff do or did that Nuno's don't, or that Mourinho's don't, or Pochettino? Like, it would be amazing to know what it is that Conte has in his brain that creates this difference between what we had and what we have. It's insane.
Yeah. Really do appreciate it, Adrian. Really do. And to be honest, I think it probably explains the ruthless finishing. But Sean, just a quick question on what you were just saying there. Would you rather be at a training session or would you rather be at a halftime sort of talk?
Oh, yeah. That would be good. Yeah. Well, I don't know actually, because I think that
one's short, the other's long. One's 2 hours, the other's 15 minutes. 15 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think one training session would be enough to learn enough, because I think a lot of the time they just do things like keep ball and like do the 1-2 passing games and do stretching and stuff. If you could spend like a month at the training ground as like documenting, like what Amazon did, if you could just sit there and just watch and go, well, what is it that he says? How does he say it? How does he do it? It would be fascinating. And I think a halftime team talk would be awesome as well. But you're not going to learn. That's not a tactical breakdown, is it? That's just how does he motivate? There's a difference between sort of like, I guess, coaching and motivation. Both would be fantastic. I'd love to. I don't know if there's any way you can do it, but if there is, it would be a bucket list item for me to go and see what this guy's capable. Because there's something magical about whatever he has. You know, he watches every game of football just like Mourinho does, just like Nuno does, just like Graham Potter does, just like anybody else does. There's something about whatever he has in his brain and the way that he can deliver it onto players that is different. And it would be a fascinating experience to be able to figure out what that is.
It's kind of tough to pick from, for me, because I feel like if I were to pick, the halftime team talks, you could just imagine it's like a, detective interrogation room. You see it through the glass, door, and you just get to see players just getting grilled, or, and then they pull out the whiteboard that they just mess around with for 3 minutes. And then,
do you think he grills them though? I can't imagine
Conte.
You think he does? You think Conte would like
certain games? There's no way he hasn't.
Yeah?
Certain performances. There's no way he hasn't. I feel like there's just no way he hasn't.
Yeah.
But then, right, that's like the one where you're kind of just sitting there, like you don't want to be in the room. You kind of just want to watch it from behind a TV screen. Whereas like the training, you just want to be there and you want to just sit on the fence and just smile and laugh and and just enjoy the day. So two very different experiences that Levy could potentially think about selling. Sean, tell us a bit about your channel.
Oh, mate, I appreciate you for having me on. You can find me on the Spurs Talk Show if you haven't already. It's all one at Spurs Talk Show on Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. And the channel's just it's basically me. I do panel shows once a week, and then I do my morning walks with my dog where I get things off my chest and talk about other stuff. And if there's any financial news and things like that, then I'll also go through those topics as well. And appreciate anyone who hasn't already to just hit the link and hit the subscribe button. I'm on the march to 900 now. 820, I think, is what I've got. So thank you, mate. Appreciate you letting me plug it.
Everybody, I'm seeing lots of new heads by the looks of it in the house today, and I think because we went at a very different time, so that does probably mean you haven't probably given that subscription over to Sean. Do head on over there, hit that big shiny red button, and as well do show him a bit of love as well, because he is a Spurs fan at the end of the day, and he does deserve a bit of that support. I think the whole community deserves a bit of support, and I think we could all come together a bit. But do show Sean the support he deserves, especially on the Tottenham walks, and as well as on the game shows that come up as well. I do like watching those back. So do show Spurs Talk Show the love and support he deserves. Everybody on the second channel, the Conrad Limer Scout Report is out. Sam Johnston Scout Report is out. Gonna kind of come up with some other videos. Some of the ones that I promoted to you guys, it's kind of tough, because I'm deciding between either making it really, really, really good, but then that just means I have to work a while on it, and that sometimes doesn't fit the time schedule, or I just kind of make a quick half-ass version of it, which then doesn't feel as good, inside, when you can make it a lot better. So
put the work in, Jack. Put the work
video
in.
Is kind of what I'm referencing, because I want to make a big video about how I was so wrong about Xavi's Barcelona, but I could just make it 5 minutes and just talk about how wrong I was, or I could make it 15 minutes and explain and show how wrong I was. And so bear with me, everybody over on that channel, just kind of, making those sort of decisions over there. But really do appreciate all the support nonetheless. Do appreciate everybody tuning in for this one. Hit that like while you're here. Do hit that sub if you are new. In terms of content, do believe Kaniki Answer Me might be coming out tomorrow, or could be Thursday. Not sure what. Stats with Jack, as always, as well. Saturday, games on Saturday, pre-match build up, match watch along, and everything. Sean, maybe any shows that coming up on yours?
I got a show tomorrow night at 6 p.m, 6 till 8 UK time, where I'm going to be doing just a panel show and looking for the Brighton preview and then I'll try, if I can find time. My shows I always say we've got 2 hours and then end up becoming 4 hours, etc. So because of my verbosity, unfortunately. But what I'd like to do is also do a show on the new sustainability regulations for FFP. Most people probably won't find it too interesting. If you are interested in understanding how the future of financing football is shaken out, then you can find out. I don't know if I'll have time to figure it out into that show. Then I'll put it in. If not, I'll just do I'll record a video and put it out there for anyone that's interested, because it's fascinating. Not from what the changes are, but how it affects agents' fees, and certain clubs are going to be in a bit of a pickle if they don't change their methodology. So I'll be going into that stuff. It won't be about Tottenham. It will be about the wider football environment. But that's where you can find me next Wednesday on my show, and then obviously on the Irish Hotspur for the next game day.
Love it. Love it. Adrian Chia saying, blindfold the strikers, make them shoot on goal. Yeah, just go. But if you've ever seen that sports science, Adrian, with Ronaldo, scores in the dark. They shut the lights off right as he, puts the header away. So maybe that's what Conte's just been doing with Harry Kane and Sonny, just been taking him into a dark warehouse. And, anytime a long ball comes into the box, they just shut the lights off and Sonny just puts it away with his left foot. Big up, Adrian. Maybe that's explaining, the finishing of recent. Maybe that's what it is. That's what I would reckon. But big up, Adrian. Do really appreciate it. As a Dave update, I think he should be back by tomorrow. Like he said, he told me he'd be back by tomorrow, but who knows? I think it's kind of like an Ollie Skip scenario. He might, then need to take another day, and maybe it's Thursday, maybe he pushes on a Friday, but he'll be back soon. It's not as serious, I think, as anybody might, want to imagine. He'll be back sooner rather than later. But I'll imagine Dave is going to, pick the right time to come back, because I think it's just him sitting in a chair is really tough. So I think, with this sort of job, you are sitting in the same chair for extended periods of time. So once he's able to get back to doing that, he'll be back, firing yet again. But everybody should be back tomorrow with some shows as well. Do enjoy the Champions League. That is on later. Hopefully Karim Benzema, Mercedes.
Come on, Madrid.
Puts away the Chelsea. But that'll be all for now, everybody. As always, come on, you Spurs. And in Conte we trust.
Come on, you Spurs!
Everywhere we go.